This video will describe the process of creating an account and manually entering data into Fiscal Checkup. For those customers that use QuickBooks, there are automated ways to get the financial data into Fiscal Checkup that are not described within this video. On the Fiscal Checkup website, in the upper right-hand corner are links to log in or to create a new account. On the next screen, if you have created an account, the email address and password should be entered for you if you have chosen those Windows options. To create an account, you must first enter your first and last name, a valid email address, and a password. Passwords must be a minimum of 8 characters. You will also be asked to establish the account name for the profile. Note that if you're a consultant or an accountant, this is likely the name of your firm. It can and should be different than the name of the company being analyzed. Once you click on Register, Fiscal Checkup sends an email to validate the email address that has been entered. Simply go to the email account specified in the profile and open the email. You may need to check your spam mailbox if you don't see the email. Within the email, there's a link to confirm the account. Simply click on that link and you will be redirected back to the website, ready to begin the process. To start the analysis for a company, simply click on New Report. Fiscal Checkup offers a free Industry Comparables report. If you select this option and then click on Continue to Wizard, you will be asked to input up to 5 NAICS industry codes, and then you will be able to print your free report. If you select the free Industry Comparables report plus the company report card, you will be asked to input a company name to place on the top of the report card. Once you click on Continue to Wizard, you will be asked to pick up to 5 NAICS industry codes and asked to input data for 3 balance sheet accounts, AR, AP, and inventory, as well as 4 income statement accounts, revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, and net profit. You will need data for at least 3 years to receive a report card. If you select Full Company Report, you will be asked for the name of the company. Then clicking on Continue to Payment will bring you to the payment screen. On this screen, you will need to pay for the analyses with a credit card. When companies purchase multiple analyses, they're given codes to redeem. One unique code for each analysis that they have purchased. Once you click on Pay with Card, you will be taken to this screen to enter in the credit card number, expiration date, and CVV code. Once the transaction is approved, you will begin the process to input data. The wizard starts with this screen. If you have completed analyses on more than one company, click on the Reports tab in the upper left-hand corner. And you will see a list of companies that you have created. You select the company that you want to work with at this time by clicking on the Edit button on the right-hand side of the company name. If you want to share access to this input wizard for this specific company, including the reports, then click on the Share button. There you will then enter the email address of the person that you wish to be given access to. You can share access with as many people as you believe are necessary. This is important for businesses that want to grant access to their accountants and for trusted business advisors that want company personnel to help input data, such as answering the subjective questions that we'll cover later in this presentation. Once you enter their email address and click on Share, they will be notified of the access and informed how to finish setting up their account. You can also create a new report for a new company. If you do not have any prepaid licenses or codes, Fiscal Checkup will ask what type of report you want and, if appropriate, start the payment process. You can also note near the top there's a tab called Settings. This allows you to select a file with a logo of your company that will print on the title page of each report. Throughout the input wizard, there's a help desk. You can type in a question or a term. To show you how it works, I entered the word cash flow. The software will give you the closest matches, and if you click on a specific question, Fiscal Checkup will give you data on the question or the term that you entered. Finally, on the wizard start screen, you can download a PDF document listing every data field that you're going to encounter within the wizard. It is sometimes easier to prepare for this wizard before you begin, especially for the subjective company and market-based questions. The next step is to choose whether you will be importing data or entering it manually. The first choice is to import data from QuickBooks Online. If you want to choose this option, there's actually a very different video that describes this import process in great detail. The second choice is to import data from QuickBooks Desktop. The third choice is to use our Excel template so that you can work offline and import all the data in one easy step. The location of the blank Excel file is on our website on our Resources page. When you click on Read More in the Applications Resources section, you can simply then download a blank copy of the Excel import document. The final option is to manually enter data, which is the process that we'll be going through in this video. The descriptions that we're going to go through will also apply if you want to use the Excel file. The Excel file is essentially the same as entering data in the wizard, but you get to do it offline. While working through our wizard, you can go to any section by clicking on any of the 6 tabs. Or you can click on Back or Next to go one tab at a time. Clicking on Next or the Company tab brings you to the Company screen. Enter the address, city, state, and zip of the company being analyzed. To select the entity type, simply click on the down arrow and choose the appropriate one. Next, select whether the company being analyzed is public or private. For the years in business, you can either type in a value or use the up and down arrows to reach the appropriate number. To select the first month of the fiscal year, click on the down arrow and select the month. The next section of the Company tab allows you to select up to 5 NAICS industry codes. This portion of the wizard is also used when creating a free industry comparables report or a free fiscal report card. Simply click on Add Industry, and then you type in either a keyword and see all the options that contain that word, or if you happen to know the NAICS code, you can start entering it. The more numbers you enter, the shorter the list. If you want to add a second NAICS code, simply click on Add Industry. You can then choose a second NAICS code by typing in a word or the appropriate code. If you enter more than one code, you must enter the percentage of revenue from each code. The software will ensure that the total adds up to 100%. The next section is where you specify the number of years of data that will be entered, between 3 to 5 years, along with specifying which year will represent the most recent year of data. Finally, enter the number of the average number of employees during each of the years with data. This will be used to calculate several employee-based metrics. That completes the Company tab. Now click on number 2, Income, or Next. The Data Wizard only asks for very specific lines on the income statement, not every line. The wizard will automatically calculate the other lines to save you time. Remember, for the income statement and the balance sheet, you must always enter either a number or a 0. Most of the figures on this page should come directly from the income statement for the business. Note that when you hover your mouse over the name of a category, Fiscal Checkup provides a more detailed explanation. On the first line, enter the revenue for the years listed. The next line is cost of goods sold. Some service businesses, nonprofits, distributors, and other business types might not have any cost of goods sold. If this is true for your business, you must enter zeros. You cannot leave the data fields blank. If you enter zeros, the final report will remove the cost of goods sold section from the report. Depreciation is related to the use of fixed assets. These numbers are important to calculate several financial ratios. Fiscal Checkup assumes all depreciation is already included in total operating expenses. If the company includes depreciation as part of cost of goods sold, you will need to subtract the depreciation from the total cost of goods sold above and then add it to the total operating expenses below. Since amortization is an expense related to the write-off of goodwill and other intangible assets, it's often also part of operating expenses. But if you have these expenses, we do need to segregate them from the total operating expenses. Most businesses will enter zeros for this line. Excess owner's compensation is the amount paid to the owners over and above a normal salary. Data entered here will also increase the business value, since a new owner might not continue to withdraw this excess compensation. If the owner is a full-time employee and their compensation is commensurate with their industry and position, enter a 0 here, since the salary would already be included as part of operating expenses. The lease expense is for rent or lease on real estate that the business uses. It does not include any equipment leases. The total operating expenses is the sum of all SG&A expenses, including the expenses listed above for depreciation, amortization, excess owner's compensation, lease expense, and any other operating expenses. Note, this should not include interest expense, which is coming up, which is also a non-operating expense. If there is any outstanding debt with an interest expense, the amount of interest paid would be entered here. The income statement should have a line that says net profit before tax. Enter those values here. If the entity is taxable, then enter the income tax expense here. Otherwise, enter zeros. If distributions or dividends were paid to owners, enter their value here. If there were any other adjustments to equity from your accountant's review, enter those numbers here. If not, enter a 0. This line is for accountants to make appropriate journal entries when needed. When all data for the income statement has been entered, click on number 3, Balance Sheet, or Next. The categories on this page should correlate to most standard balance sheets. Fiscal Checkup only needs the data for the accounts listed. It will calculate other accounts like other current assets or other current liabilities. The data fields on this page start with cash and equivalents. Enter the appropriate value in the cells. For businesses that extend credit in the form of receivables, enter the amount of net outstanding at the end of the fiscal period. Inventory can be comprised of raw material, finished goods, work in process, labor, and other possible accounts. Enter the total inventory from the balance sheet here. This line is the total of all current assets or short-term assets, including those listed above. The total property, plant, and equipment is the total original value of the assets. Do not deduct depreciation. This is the gross value, not the net value. The total accumulated depreciation is listed here. When it is deducted from the previous amount, Fiscal Checkup will calculate the net property, plant, and equipment. This is the total assets for the business, which should be identical to the total assets and liabilities on the other side of the balance sheet. If there are outstanding long-term loans more than 1 year, the amounts due within the next calendar year should be entered here. This is referred to as the current maturities of long-term debt, and it is the amount of the loan that is due in the next fiscal year. Remember, no interest is included in the current maturities of long-term debt, only the principal. The amount of outstanding invoices, listed as accounts payable, is entered here. Any short-term debt or notes payable due within the next year is listed here. This is the total of all current liabilities, including all of the accounts listed above. Term debt is the balance of any debt due long term, which is longer than the next fiscal year. Capital stock is the amount of capital that was paid into the company in return for stock. It is usually a number that is the same every year. Retained earnings is the sum of the profits for the business since the inception of the company. The total stockholders' equity would include the two accounts above, plus often some other accounts. Total stockholders' equity is the total number for all equity accounts. This is the important number. The wizard will make the adjustments that are needed to calculate other accounts not listed. When you're complete with the balance sheet, click on number 4, Valuation, or Next. When completing a financially driven business valuation, it's important to allow for adjustments to the financial statements in order to reflect the true value of the underlying assets and liabilities of the business. Some companies choose to leave this page blank the first time that they complete a report on a business, and then work with their CPA firm to add accurate values later. The goal here is to create financial statements that reflect the true earnings potential of the company as well as its value. For example, if the cost of goods sold listed on the income statement is not accurately representing the actual costs, we need to enter an adjustment here. Note that for the first 3 variables listed here, if the value on the financial statements is understated, then the adjustment should be entered as a negative number. If the expenses listed on the income statement include one-time expenses not normal to the business, enter the value of those expenses here. Since this is a positive number that we've entered, the values on the income statement were by definition overstated. If there are any long-term liabilities that are not stated in the liability section of the balance sheet, enter any adjustments here. For example, if the company has an off-balance sheet liability like a lawsuit that they feel they will probably lose, place the value here. This line is pretty unusual for most companies. Most companies will have a 0 entered for this line of data. For this and the next variable, if the value on the financial statements is understated, then enter the adjustment as a positive number. If the inventory listed on the balance sheet does not represent its real value, enter the amount here to adjust it to its real value. As buildings and equipment are depreciated, or there's non-depreciating assets like land, the values on the balance sheet might not accurately reflect their fair market value. If adjustments are needed to be made to increase their value to the fair market value of the assets, this is where they're entered. Note that it's rare that adjustments would be made in every one of the categories on this screen. When you're done, click on number 5, Subjective or Next, to access the next section. The first section here, under the subjective questions, contains 8 questions that are mandatory to complete the analysis because some of the data is used to calculate some of the ratios, and the data from other questions are used in the competitive and market analysis. If you are a trusted advisor, this is the section that you might need the business to help complete. The first question relates to the concentration of customers. The second question is about the growth rate of the company's primary market. The third question asks about market share changes within the industry. The fourth question asks about the competitiveness of the company's product or service. The fifth question asks about how well the sales force is achieving their goals. The next question asks how knowledgeable the sales force is about its customers and their competitors. The next question asks about the selling organization and compensation. The last question of the mandatory questions asks about the quality of the sales support organization. Answering the next 10 questions is optional, but answering them improves the completeness of the report. The first question deals with customer concentration. The second question asks about internal sales force control functions. The third question asks about the quality of customer service. The fourth question asks about the frequency of customer orders. The fifth question asks about the profitability of new sales versus repeat or old sales. The next question asks if there are any significant supply issues. The next question asks how cyclical the primary market is. The next question asks about the geography of the primary market served. And the next question asks whether the products or services are custom or standard. The final question asks about the average price changes in the last year. If the prices were increased or decreased, enter the average percentage change. When the subjective questions are complete, simply click on number 6, Projected or Next. The next 7 questions in this section allow a user to stress test the forward-looking projections within the software. Within the software, there's a forward-looking forecast that forecasts out for 3 years, projecting income statement, balance sheet, and bankability of the business. It's recommended that the first time the report is generated, that no changes are made to the base assumptions calculated by the software. Note that under each value is listed the historic numbers that have been calculated by the software. The user is able to increase or decrease these numbers and then view the effect of the changes on the forward-looking projections. Those forward-looking projections are contained in both the executive summary and the lender's report. You can change the sales growth percentage, the cost of goods sold as a percentage of sales, the operating expenses as a percentage of sales, the capital expenditures as a percentage of sales, the AR days, the AP days, and finally the inventory days. You can come back and change these values for projections over the course of the license period. Click on Next to finish the input process. To generate a report, click on Print Preview. If cells have not been entered as a number or a 0, you will not be allowed to generate a report. The screen here will show you where or tell you where those values still need to be entered. The report will be shown on the left with the table of contents on the right. You can click on any section of any report in the right-hand pane to preview it on your screen. The last section of each report is a free text field where the person preparing the report can add comments or an explanation before the report is printed. When you click on any one of the Advisor Comments sections, it opens a window on the left-hand side of the screen where you can enter comments or clarifications. You can enter the comments now or later after reviewing each report. Checking or unchecking the checkbox next to the title of each report will tell Fiscal Checkup whether or not to print a specific report. Only those with a check mark will be printed. When you're ready to print, simply click on Download Report in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Then the report will automatically open in your computer's default PDF viewer. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please give us a call or email us.